betrayed WCW.
What in the hell is he doing here? Monday Nitro. He is broken.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Brett screamed Brett. The new world order, brother. Let's get this. We are at war.
Nitro, then. We had Nitro number 95, also July 7th. Gene Okerlund brought Curt Hennig out for a promo. Curt refused to reveal his plans, but said he would be at Bash at the Beach. Gene asked if he was going to be Dallas Page's tag team partner. And I can't believe this. I actually wrote Hennig here. That's embarrassing. Hennig insisted he was a free agent. So out comes Ric Flair with a lovely young woman in an evening gown. Attempts to recruit Hennig into the Four Horsemen. Curt resisted, which to me was a smart move. Clearly he'd been watching Nitro for the past year, realized what a shit show the Four Horsemen had become. Finally, Hennig said nothing was final, but he did leave with Flair and the young blonde. Harlem Heat versus Public Enemy. They went back and forth a few minutes. Vincent came out to distract Harlem Heat. Booker T chased him away. So Stevie Ray is in there and he's doing just fine on his own. And he goes for a pile driver and Rocco Rock goes up top. Sherry shoves Rocco.
As soon as you start describing the finish like that, everybody should be well aware what a fucking mess this was.
That is the result, yes. Okay. I'll go into a bit more detail.
Please.
Stevie is pile driving Grunge. He's going to set him up for a pile driver. And Rocco is on the top rope in such a position that it appears he's going to help Stevie do a spike pile driver on Grunge. Sherry goes up top, shoves Rocco in the ass. Rocco goes flying into Stevie, who's holding Grunge for a pile driver. So Stevie lets go, which, if you're visualizing this correctly, you realize Grunge gets dropped onto his head. Literally dropped onto his head. Stevie goes down. Somehow this hurts Stevie, not Johnny Grunge. And Grunge covers Stevie for the pin.
Okay, I don't know if this is...
I did write, what MS?
I wrote, what a fucking mess. I don't know if this was what was supposed to happen. But Vincent comes out, and Sherry tries to alert her men, at which point Booker goes after Vincent. That leaves us with Stevie Ray against both of Public Enemy. Correct?
Yes.
So, shouldn't Public Enemy have double-teamed Stevie, and they went for a spike pile driver, and then Rocco got shoved off the top into them, they both fall down, and Stevie gets the pin. Doesn't that fucking make sense?
Well, they wanted Sherry to cost Harlem Heat the match.
She did. In my scenario, she also cost them the match. She sent Booker away.
I see.
Leaving Stevie by himself to get double-teamed, but then there's the rigmarole there at the end. Instead...
Either way, this is all too much dumb stuff.
Instead, Stevie gets left alone, and he runs wild on both guys. And then is going for a pile driver, and Rocco's going up top as he's doing that. What was Rocco's plan? To jump off onto both guys? Because that's what fucking happened when he got pushed off.
I don't know.
This sucked.
It's not good. Then... Harlem Heat gave Sherry a warning, told her to, that she couldn't get her act together, she needed to leave. She said, "You can't fire me, I quit." And she left. That was that.
Do you know that legit was the end of Sherry Martel's active wrestling career?
I figured this came out of such nowhere. It had to be that she quit like an hour before the show. Because there was zero build to this.
This was it?
Yeah.
What do you mean zero build? There was 2 years of her doing nothing. That's the build.
I guess so. I hadn't thought of it that way.
This started in 1995 when we were watching the show every week, and she was having a romantic affair with Colonel Rob Parker.
Yeah.
Which fucking went nowhere.
No.
And then she just remained with Harlem Heat doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Except drawing what I'm assuming was one of the fat WCW paychecks. I would do a lot of nothing for a WCW paycheck. We had a Chris Benoit, Kevin Sullivan hype video. All I can say about these is they had a lot of great matches. These hype videos are all so lame. Joe Gomez versus Conan.
I know I said the show was great, but it hadn't gotten great yet. We're still at the bad part.
I can only imagine. I realized Nitro was stomping them in the war at this point. But this had to have been a boost to Raw's rating. I wanted to turn to Raw when these guys came out.
Conan, and you know what? I love Conan and all, but Conan out there in a plaid shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes. Totally looked like a fan.
They show Raven sitting at ringside, and I know it's his gimmick. But Raven's, he takes his seat, he looks at the action in the ring, takes a deep, deep sigh, and then just plants a disapproving scowl on his face. And I thought, that's my reaction to this match as well. And in fact, every time I see a lame match like this, I'm going to be reminded of this sick, disgusted expression on Raven's face. Because that's how I felt watching this too. Conan squashed him forever, won with a tequila sunrise. It sucked.
This was horrible. But thankfully, the show then began to turn around.
Villanos 4 and 5 versus Hector Garza and Juventud Guerrera. I think this is the match you were thinking of when you talked about.
Yes, this was it.
Just nonstop. You do a move, you do a move, you do a move, you do a move. Some of them be cool, some of them be so spectacularly bad it's still cool. I love Larry's line here, where they're talking about how there's relaxed rules in Lucha Libre. You don't need to make a tag to switch, you can just leave the ring and your partner can come in. And Larry says he doesn't like these rules, and it's not just because he's an American or those are Mexican rules, he doesn't like them. He has a good reason for not liking these rules. When the rules are very relaxed and when they're not very strict, it's difficult to take advantage of them. In other words,
well, that's true.
The fewer rules there are, the harder it is to cheat.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
Well, it was, but what he also said was, I like the traditional rules better. And I was like, Larry, you're watching a Lucha Libre match, and these are the traditional rules. They're not having an American match, right?
I guess.
So he wanted to watch a Lucha Libre match where they stopped using their traditional rules and used modern American rules.
Yeah.
What a dick.
Of course.
Come on, dude.
So the most exciting spot in the whole match was Hoovy hitting Air Hoovy and very accidentally falling over the ropes to the floor. It was all kinds of athletic silliness is how I describe this match. And the crowd went nuts when Hoovy hit a tope and Garza hit a moonsault press. It should have been the finish, but they kept going. And a few minutes later, Garza hit a corkscrew plancha, sorta, and Hoovy hit a Muchanuku driver and a 450 splash for the win.
It was spectacular, I'll give him that.
Oh, yeah. Scott Hall and Randy Savage came out to take over the announce desk. Larry refused to leave. So they promised to take care of that mid-card jabroni Diamond Dallas Page, ran him down a little bit. In the end, this was so brilliant. Hall flicks his toothpick in Larry's face, so Larry jumps up, and Hall rips off his t-shirt, he's ready to fight, but Savage grabs Hall and pulls him away. And this is so awesome because they managed to paint Hall as the asshole antagonizer, but neither guy had to be the one to back down. So neither guy had to be the coward. They both came out basically looking good.
What I loved about this was Randy Savage is laying on the desk and he's being all cocky. They're talking about their match that they have. At the pay-per-view coming up, it is Hogan and Rodman against Giant and Luger, as well as Hall and Savage against DDP and whoever the mystery partner is going to be. And Savage is splayed out on the desk, and in the cockiest manner possible, he says, "We are taking our opponents lightly."
Yes.
He does not give a shit. And he says, all of you out there watching on television, stay tuned. Later on, I'm going to go down and I'm going to give somebody a wrestling lesson. And of course, we know what happens. But I always love when a cocky heel gets theirs.
Oh, yeah.
And Randy was so good at it.
Yes.
He was such a pro.
We had a great video package. Give me a short history lesson of Lex Luger and the Giant, their history as rivals and as partners. It's clips from various shows, along with sit-down promos from the two of them edited in. So it goes back to World War III, when the finish was Lex Luger versus four dudes in the NWO. And Giant was impressed with how valiantly Luger fought, but at the end there was four of them and one of him, and Giant ended up winning. But then, Giant was not given the title shot that was promised to him by the NWO. That was when he knew trouble was brewing. So Lex explains how WCW had welcomed him back, given him a fresh chance to start over. He had to do the same for the Giant, even though nobody else would. And this led to the four-way they had with Harlem Heat, where the winner would get a title shot, and how Giant had the match won, but decided he owed Luger a favor, and tagged Luger in so Luger could get the victory instead. They both talked about how they've been insulted and embarrassed and humiliated by Dennis Rodman and the NWO, and they couldn't wait to get their revenge this Sunday. That was very good.
Not only that, but during virtually every commercial break, they had a graphic talking about the matches on Sunday, the date of the show. They promoted this so good. And obviously, Rodman was being paid millions of dollars.
Yes.
So the idea is, let's try to make some money off this fucking
profit.
pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And I was just like, if they spend this much time and effort promoting all of their pay-per-views during this period where they were on top, they might still be around today. I couldn't believe what a good job they did here.
Yeah. Vicious and Delicious versus Eddie and Chavo Guerrero.
This was so great.
First of all, they cut backstage. This is a classic WCW moment. They cut backstage to show a limousine arriving and then leaving. Then they go to the match, and yes, this was a great match.
The announcers tried to explain this faux pas by saying clearly whoever was in the limo saw the WCW cameras, and so they kept driving. It's like, oh. That was back when they cared enough to try to explain this bullshit.
Yes. So Bagwell early on hits a drop kick, marks out for himself. I laughed. I thought, okay, he's been a fun, wacky character. And we get the Scott Norton suplexing both Guerreros at once, and that was awesome. So Bagwell is in the ring. Eddie blind tags himself in, hits a springboard drop kick to the back. And Bagwell's pissed off. He gets up and slaps the fuck out of Eddie. So Eddie's pissed off. He fires up and he whips Bagwell's ass. Now Bagwell's pissed off and he press lands him. And this match rules. Oh, this is a great match. Eddie and Chavo weren't getting along. Eddie would always tag out as soon as he got in trouble and tag back in whenever Chavo got the advantage. And finally, Eddie walked out on him. And Chavo gave it his all, going alone against two men. He was eventually double teamed to death. And he was watching the stage, but blew Chavo off and just went to the back. And Bagwell finally pinned Chavo with the assisted blockbuster. It did go a little too long at the end, but that first part when it was all four guys in there was awesome.
I always liked Scott Norton, but man, Scott Norton was awesome. I love the idea, as I mentioned before, that Scott Norton and Buff Bagwell are pals.
Yeah.
The two most different people in the world.
The prettiest boy in the NWO, and the guy who's least pretty. You don't care.
I've said this forever. The day will never come when fans will not go crazy for a big, thick, strong motherfucker pounding the shit out of someone or throwing them all over the world.
Absolutely.
Every time Chavo gets left by himself and he's fighting valiantly. And it was hilarious watching Norton and Bagwell do Keystone Cops comedy spots to try to make you think as they trip all over themselves that maybe Chavo has a chance to win.
Yeah.
Of course he does not. And every time Chavo would make a big comeback and Norton would either suplex him or he would mow him down, the fans just went crazy. I loved this match. I loved it.
It was great.
It is Vicious and Delicious, underrated team.
Very, very, very. And it's greatly unfair that Bagwell is best known for that stupid Tacoma match, which wasn't even totally his fault. They do a WCW match in Tacoma, and gee, it got booed. Who knew? But it's not fair because for a long time he was a great babyface, and he turned heel a year ago, and he's been a great heel too.
Sad he broke his neck. That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, well, that was. So it was the start of the second hour. Heenan came out to do commentary, but Larry refused to leave.
Larry could at least have given him his chair.
He wouldn't do anything.
I'm not getting out of your chair. Yeah. So you stand there.
He explained he was there to see this Savage match. It was very important to him to watch this wrestling lesson.
Because, Larry always has to know everything and be the smartest man in the room.
Yes. So it was Randy Savage versus La Parka. La Parka had mysteriously grown 6 inches in height since last week. And forgot how to dance. Forgot about that.
You know what, though? Pretty good La Parka impersonation.
Aside from that, he did pretty good.
I mean, it was not blatantly obvious that it was not La Parka. And I would bet, based on the audience reaction, I would bet 99% of the people in the building were sure that it was just La Parka.
Yeah.
Didn't pay much attention to him.
I think in most cases you were right. I think the people who did pay attention to La Parka would realize right away that ain't La Parka. It is very, very basic chain stuff early, like arm ringers and arm drags and lots of stalling. And Hall left to go harass Zbyszko. So the fans are chanting for Larry, not even barely watching the match. They figure this is just a waste of time anyway. So Savage goes for a top rope splash, which I've never seen him do before or since.
Well, I think we were supposed to believe he was going for the elbow.
I see.
But the spot, it ended up being a splash.
So Parker gets the feet up into Savage's face, and as Savage is selling, La Parka jumps up and hits a diamond cutter. He unmasks, it's DDP, and he makes the cover and gets the win. I think it would have been better if he had gotten the pin and then unmasked. But anyway.
It was interesting. I mean, I think they thought he's got to take off the mask so we get a giant pop at the finish. But you could tell, you never know how an audience is going to react until the moment. But the moment he hit that diamond cutter, everybody in the building figured it out immediately. There was no one in the building that thought La Parka had thrown a diamond cutter and stolen DDP's move. They knew immediately it was DDP, but I think DDP wanted to make sure they knew, so he unmasked.
He and they may have wanted the visual of Page's face as he pinned Savage.
It's also led to the most awesome moment where Hall is over there yelling at Larry, and he's not paying attention. And he only hears the referee count 1, 2, 3, and the audience explodes. And so he jumps to his feet, and he's raising his hands in victory like, yeah, we got La Parka! And then he realizes, what the fuck?
Savage is down. He runs down to ringside. He picks up the La Parka mask, and the gears in his head are slowly turning. He figures it out. So it was all a great angle. To make a long story short.
It was a really, really good angle. There were some good angles on this show.
Psychosis and Silver King versus Glacier and Ernest Miller. They cut backstage, and if you listen to any of my reviews in the past decade, you know, there's a lot of times I'll say, two guys were having a brawl, or some guys were brawling on the floor, and usually that's all there is to it. They cut backstage where Eddie and Chavo were having a brawl, and they were beating the fuck out of each other. These dudes are going to town. It was the coolest thing Chavo ever did.
Probably not the first or the last time this happened.
It may have been an actual fight. That would explain a lot. So that was awesome. They went back to the ring. The match only went like a minute, and Wrath and Mortis ran down, and a 6-way brawl broke out.
Well, let's talk about Ernest Miller. This fella here had an amazing amount of potential. This was like his second professional wrestling match. Think about that. Took good bumps. His offense looked great. He could do a modicum of selling. But as we've mentioned before, he was the guy who taught Bischoff's son karate. Mm-hmm. And so he had zero incentive to get better. He literally started at an acceptable level, maybe a little below average, and he maintained that for his entire career. If he had spent just a little bit of time trying to get better, he may still have some sort of career today. God, he was good. For a guy in a second match. So the Luchadors clearly wanted to be a part of all this. They were diving all over the place, and then went to break. Lee Marshall told a joke about Alice in Weaselland. Okerlund brings Flair out for a promo. So Flair promises Roddy Piper's there and reveals a mannequin in a kilt. Or as Gene referred to it, a cockamamie mannequin. That's what he said. And he delivered the line masterfully.
Yes.
All these geek backstage interviewers in NXT.
Oh, yeah.
There ain't one of them that could deliver the line about a cockamamie mannequin like Gene Okerlund did.
So Flair's running down Piper, says he's a stiff, and says he's carried more stiffs than there are apples in Washington. I live in Washington. I'm aware we have a lot of apples. They call the big college football game the Apple Cup. I've never heard anyone say more of blank than there are apples in Washington.
Well, he's Ric Flair, and I'm sure he was thinking Oregon. Isn't that by Seattle?
Sure.
How many times have you heard that?
I guess so.
I live in Seattle. Oh, is it in Oregon? No, it's not in fucking Oregon.
Yeah. So Piper comes up, stands behind Flair, and Flair doesn't know he's there.
You know what was great about that moment? If you've been watching the show, For the last probably, I don't know, year, Ric Flair has just been a clown.
Yeah.
He comes out, he had shoulder surgery, so he had no feuds. He would just come out there and, you know, he'd try to talk some guy into fucking some girl, and he'd laugh, and he'd just be all cockamamie. Here, he finally had somebody he was going to have a wrestling match with. And so he went out there and he turned in a 1986 Flair, and he cut a deadly serious promo about how he was going to beat this guy's ass. It was so great. I'd forgotten he could do it.
Yes. So the other question here is, as Piper stands behind Flair looking mean and the crowd's cheering, and Flair does the slow burn realization, who does the better slow burn realizing that his enemy is standing right behind him, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan? They're both great at it.
Oh, man. They're both equally great.
Yeah.
Flair sells it better.
Flair does when he does when the light bulb goes on, he's better at that moment.
Hogan is really good at facially showing you the realization that, oh shit, I'm fucked.
Yes.
Whereas Flair physically sells the realization.
Okay.
Like he can turn around, see someone, and then spontaneously take a bump.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
So Flair runs down to the ring, Piper runs after him, and then they just did the same stuff they did 15 years earlier. Piper beat him up, stripped off his suit. Flair's running around doing spots in his green boxers with his pants around his ankles.
Fluorescent green boxer shorts.
Yes. Hey,
are those custom fucking made?
He's the nature boy. What do you want? Benoit and Mongo run out there, and it's funny because Piper fighting them off, if you just watch this, it looked awful.
It was ridiculous.
It was the opposite of Eddie and Chavo beating the shit out of each other backstage. It looked terrible. But the place was going nuts.
Because one man beating up three
is cool.
Because they really weren't even looking at Roddy. They were looking at like Benoit bouncing all over for Roddy Piper. Which, by the way, think about that. Chris Benoit in his physical prime, bumping all over for a guy with one hip.
Yeah.
And then Mongo goes flying for nothing.
Yes.
Roddy
Piper waves his hands at him.
Roddy is whacking Benoit, and then he turns around, and maybe he was going to do the Dusty thing or whatever, where you roll your fists in the circle or whatever he was doing. Mongo suddenly goes flying.
I think Piper may be a Jedi. He used the Force to knock Mongo down. Finally, they overwhelmed him. They're beating him down. This got even more heat, and they lay Piper out. And Benoit hit the farthest diving headbutt I've ever seen. He was 4/5 of the way across the ring.
And then...
oh, yeah, there's more.
The announcers are screaming that we got to go to commercial. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Tony is screaming, there's somebody in the ring.
Yes, they've already cut to the wide shot and are painting the crowd.
Yeah, we're 1,000 feet away. And we just see someone in the ring.
Yeah.
Go to commercial, and we come back. And Tony is going on and on about, have you ever seen a night as crazy as this one? And I'm like, cool. Who was in the ring? And Tony goes, Mike Tenay's in the crowd with Raven. Yeah. And I'm like, who the fuck was in the ring?
I assume it was Jarrett.
I thought it was Sullivan.
That's possible, too.
The point is, it's a mystery
Yes.
lost to fucking time because nobody bothered after commercial to tell us who was in the goddamn ring after they called attention to it.
Yeah. So Tenay tries to interview Raven, but he's interrupted because Stevie Richards makes his Nitro debut. Since Tenay has no business doing this interview, I'll do it myself. Tenay points out, okay, you and Raven were former tag team champions. You interview him. Stevie calls the fans morons in Memphis. Everyone boos. Raven just rolls his eyes, embarrassed to be a part of any of this. Stevie asks Raven if he has signed with the WCW. Raven hits him and leaves. Stevie tells Tenay, I told you he didn't want to be interviewed. So yes, they brought in Raven and Stevie from ECW and just had them start over.
Yeah, start over in WCW.
Yes.
Not in Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
In watered down Championship Wrestling.
I guess so. Chris Benoit and Mongo versus the Steiners. As we've mentioned, Mongo is the perfect opponent for the Steiners. Because they're so big and scary, they don't care if he hits them. They'll just say, clobber us, it's fine. But then when it's their turn to go on offense, they're so big and scary, they can throw them around. It's a perfect match. And Benoit was great with them too, because Benoit was great with everyone. So, in short, this was a tremendous slobber knocker. This match was awesome as well.
Best mean guy match I've seen in months.
It was awesome. Suddenly they cut backstage where Randy Savage is torturing Nick Patrick and running room to room. I still have no idea what's going on there.
Well, presumably he was a referee that counted the pinfall when the fake La Parka pinned Randy Savage.
I see. The Steiners are double teaming Mongo. He makes his own comeback, rocking both guys with body shots.
Let me talk about the absolute best thing ever. First off, Scott takes Mongo to the top rope and gives him an overhead belly-to-belly.
Yeah.
Scott suplexed Mongo hither and yon.
Oh, yeah.
And Mongo couldn't do a goddamn thing about it.
Nope.
Because Scott gets bigger every week.
Yeah. He couldn't do a good goddamn thing about it, except take it and like it, which I think he did.
Yeah. So he gets thrown halfway across the ring, and upon landing, you don't even see where he came from. But Benoit flies in out of nowhere with a diving headbutt on Scott Steiner.
Yes.
Everybody's down. So Rick must have just been shaking with excitement as he watched all of this violence unfold in the ring. Because when he made the hot tag, he ran wild. And in fact, Rick Steiner did a move I have never seen before, nor have I seen since. And it was the coolest move ever. He whips Benoit into the ropes, and he goes for a backdrop. The old school Ohio Valley first move of the comeback backdrop. He whips Benoit in. He starts doing a backdrop. As Benoit leaves and starts being launched into the air, Rick suddenly leaps into the air, grabs him, and completes a belly-to-belly. That was the coolest fucking thing I have ever seen. Can someone please screen cap that or make an animated GIF so I can put that on Twitter? That was so awesome.
I was only able to describe that as an insane power slam.
Oh my God.
Does not do it justice.
No, it doesn't.
So it breaks down into a four-way. Jarrett returns, I think, and he goes after Mongo. Benoit gets his hands on Jimmy Hart. Suddenly, Kevin Sullivan is at ringside with a chair, but Jacqueline's fighting him for some reason. He throws her down the first time. He breaks the chair over Benoit's head, grabs a pokey stick. He's going to take out Benoit's eye until Rick chases him away, but then Rick covers Benoit and pins him. Meanwhile, Sullivan is still manhandling Jackie, shoves her down 2 or 3 more times. That was a hell of a slobber knocker with an insane finish.
Dude, early in the show, we were watching the Harlem Heat thing, and they also had a schmaz at the end, and it was a fucking disaster. This was such awesome chaos.
Yes.
This was not a disaster. Everything here was fantastic. I don't know what was going on with Sullivan and Jackie. They stumble all over each other like 3 times and got in a fight. I don't know what's going on.
The announcers promised that Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus Lex Luger and the Giant would be the match of a lifetime. That'd be a sad life. Now, at this point, when I was watching the show earlier this afternoon, I had to go run some errands. I thought, there's like 10 minutes left. I'll come back and watch it later. Make a long story short, my errands ended up taking up all afternoon and evening, and I had to panically show up here early and try to get it watched. And now that I watched it, I don't know why. It was a waste of time. It was Bischoff and Hogan coming out for a promo. They made fun of Lex Luger appearing on Regis and Kathy Lee. Tons of garbage hitting the ring. And it was funny because there wasn't a lot of booing or chanting or any kind of audio sound. They were just throwing garbage to the ring like they had passed out cups of soda at everybody. So Luger and Giant come out. They're pelted with garbage as well. Bischoff goes after Luger, so Luger grabs him. Hogan does a scourge dance in the corner as Luger puts Bischoff in the rack and Giant chokeslams Vincent and Bagwell. And the story was Hogan left Bischoff high and dry to get tortured in the torture rack until Luger got bored and just dropped him. And that was the end of the go-home show for Bash at the Beach.
It is so amazing looking back. It is exactly as I remembered. You have this amazing undercard, and the main event with the main event guys is so goddamn boring. There was nothing of any note here. Came out, did the same promo we see every week, did some stuff, there was a schmaz, and away we go. It was weak sauce.
Yeah.
But hell of a great show.
The Steiner's match was awesome. I've already forgotten now what the other awesome segment was. There's 2 awesome segments on there. Oh, the Bagwell match.
That's right.
The Bagwell match and the Steiner's match were awesome. So,
that's right.
Anyway, that was Nitro.
All right, Nitro.
Monday Nitro, July 14th, 1997. The location was Orlando, Florida. This is the night after Bash at the Beach. Hogan and Rodman had lost to Luger. Luger made Hogan tap out for the second time in less than a month. Hennig showed up as a mystery partner.
Funny how they're building a challenger for the champion by having him win and repeatedly
Isn't that
beat
crazy?
the champion. Who would have fucking thought? And by the way, wait, spoiler here, wait until the day comes that Lex Luger beats Hulk Hogan for the title.
Yeah.
After he has been built up so strong, beaten the man in non-title matches, and won all of his other matches. And then compare that today where everybody has to lose 1,000,000 times before they get a championship match, and I have to have geeks explain to me that this is actually good booking. Meanwhile, nobody is over nowadays.
That's very true. They cut to the ring, and Michael Buffer is there. He introduces the show and then throws the show to the Nitro Girls making their debut.
Man, these Nitro girls.
Yes.
Well, first off, they were hot. But second
Yes.
off, it was like cool.
Sure.
It made the show seem cool. They didn't dance for too long. They didn't do too much. They were out there like an actual cheerleading squad from a legit sports team, even though Kimberly sucked and it wasn't the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders or anything
No,
like
that
that.
was
But
not.
you know what? They tried. It's professional wrestling.
They did try, Brian. I would
They
give you that.
pretended like they were really good. And the show's fake. So what are we complaining about?
Yeah, okay, you've got
I
me
liked
there.
it.
Your logic is sound, sir. So they talked about fake Sting from last night,
Jesus Christ.
and Sting was legitimately like 7 foot tall.
Yeah, they have a still photo of Sting, and they're arguing whether it's Sting,
Yeah.
and if not, who it might be. And meanwhile, they point out, well, he appears to be 7 fucking feet tall with long hair.
Yeah.
Wonder who this could be. And then they tell us you'll have to buy the replay
Yes.
and make a decision for yourself. And I'm like, did one human being on the face of this earth buy the replay so that they could see the 7-foot Sting and try to figure out for themselves who it might be?
They were pushing the replay of Bash at the Beach so hard. At one point, Bobby Heenan just says, "Hey, do you want to see it again?"
You know what, though? Those replays did business.
I'm sure they did. That was before DVRs and people that didn't know how to work a VCR, I guess. So our first match was Alex Wright versus Prince Iaukea.
Alex Wright did this inset promo. That was so awesome.
Yeah?
This guy would have fit right in on Raw today. He would have been a total mid-card geek, but you could transport him to 2016. He would have fit right in.
I hate you right now.
Why? Do you watch Raw?
I hate Alex Wright.
Yeah.
Somebody explain his gimmick to me. Please.
He's a German who thinks he's really hot, and he has a goofy dance, and you're supposed to hate him. It's like The Miz.
No, it's
Only
not like
he's-
The Miz.
I shouldn't say Miz is very entertaining. I just
Yes.
like to watch him wrestle. I don't like watching Alex Wright wrestle either. So my point stands, he'd fit right in 2016 in WWE. Him and The Miz would be a great tag team. How can you hate Alex Wright?
It's easy.
Oh, hi, it's a great gimmick.
It's no gimmick.
Yeah, that's great.
It's such a waste of space and money.
Oh, wow.
Please.
Of all people to get on, you're getting on Alex Wright.
And plus, I hate his work.
Well, his work isn't great, but of all the people, have you not watched Johnny Grunge?
I watched him tonight, and yeah, he sucks
Prince
too.
Iaukea?
That's my point. This is the first match. Prince Iaukea versus Alex Wright.
And I'm sure it smashed Raw head to head. Wonder what this went up against. What was the halfway mark of Raw?
No, this was the first match, Brian.
I know, but I'm trying to think what went on first. Nitro? Oh, I guess it was unopposed.
Right.
Okay, so who cares?
Exactly.
Point is, Alex Wright had a much higher ceiling than Prince Iaukea.
Anyway, the match went about a minute, and Giant hit the ring and chokeslammed Prince Iaukea. I'm screaming at my television and going, no, the other guy.
Wow, what a mark.
Yeah.
It's just Alex Wright.
The funny thing is, the crowd popped huge when he starts destroying men.
Gee, I wonder why.
Right. Security runs down. Giant is chokeslamming men.
That was all the luchadors. An unmasked
Really?
La Parca? Yeah. You can see Psychosis got unmasked, so he's the last guy. He's the guy that runs in late.
Huh.
A skinny guy with long hair. He gets chokeslammed from 10 feet in the air. One of the Villanos was there. Parca was there.
Because some of these guys couldn't take a chokeslam.
Dude, they're luchadors. They're used to rolling bumps. Not some giant chokeslam in their ass.
Anyway, Giant then says he's had it with the NWO, especially Kevin Nash. He knows it was Nash that attacked him with the bat last night, and he wants a piece of him now. Instead, he got let off by security. Then we had Eddie Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero. This is a result on Eddie walking out of Chavo last week in a tag match. I am told. I didn't see it. Chavo took offense early. He sent Eddie to the floor. He hit a huge dive. Back in, Chavo gets crotched and Eddie immediately followed it up with a Rana. In a funny spot, Eddie bends over and tells Chavo to say hi to Grandma for him, and then punches Chavo in the face.
Eddie Guerrero over the last year, personality-wise, there's a story that Eddie had no personality and was a vanilla midget until he came to WWE and hooked up with Vicky. This is incorrect. Eddie Guerrero was so awesome
in this match
by July of 1997. This man was oozing charisma in this match here. He didn't do the promos he did later, but there was nothing vanilla about Eddie Guerrero in this match. Chavo, on the other hand, Chavo needs to hook up with Vicky today. He's that vanilla.
Anyway, Chavo ended up making a brief comeback. He hit a pair of suplexes. He went up top and missed a frog splash. Excuse me. Eddie got his knees up on the frog splash. And then he destroyed Chavo with a power bomb, hit a frog splash of his own, and made the pin. After the match, Eddie hit another frog splash until Hector Guerrero came out and made the save.
In storyline, why is Hector in the building?
That's a good point. Maybe he was just there seeing his family work.
In Orlando?
Do you know where he lives?
Not Orlando.
Okay.
Texas? New Mexico? I don't know.
It's just a quick hour plane ride.
Where does Hector Guerrero live?
Seriously?
Tampa. I don't know if that's the same one. Honestly, that's what just came up. I just Googled that and it came up.
Yeah, it's close, Brian.
Well, that ain't Orlando.
It's close. It's in the state, I've been told.
El Paso is where he lives.
I like your first answer.
I realize that the resident says Tampa, but this is Wikipedia. It cannot be trusted.
Then get off of the page then. Next up, we had Paige and Kimberly out. Kimberly looks amazing. She's wearing the outfit that she will be dancing in next. Paige said 6 months ago he had a match in Minneapolis, and after the show, he went out for a few beers. Said he ran into Curt Hennig and realized they had a lot in common. Paige said he would have asked Sting for help last night, but Sting had already helped him out way too many times. Luger and the Giant were busy, so they were out. That left Hennig. But apparently Hennig isn't a stand-up guy, he says. Paige says he was full of surprises, and if you don't believe him, to ask Savage about La Parka.
Good promo here about Curt Hennig.
Potato.
No, that's an extra N. That'd be like potaton. It's incorrect.
Fine.
I will add that in the 90s, so many people hated Diamond Dallas Page. It was a great fucking promo.
He really was.
He was so good as a promo here. And it was also very clear, obviously with the benefit of hindsight, that he would eventually become a motivational speaker.
Okay. We had the Nitro girls dancing again in smaller outfits. We had the Harlem Heat out. They promised to beat up the Outsiders. Really nothing more to say about this. Okay.
He said there was nothing more to say. What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Maybe you had something to
I
add.
had nothing more to say.
Apparently.
You were correct.
We had Vicious and Delicious versus the Steiner brothers.
This I could talk about for years.
Well, please, go ahead, sir.
They did a spot where Bagwell slapped Scott Steiner across the face.
Yeah.
If I were doing a match with Scott Steiner, and he not only told me that he wanted me to slap him across the face, but offered me money, I still wouldn't do it. Bagwell slapped this guy across the face, and Scott beat the holy living shit out of this guy. They're doing the match, and a limo arrives, and Conan gets out of the NWO limousine.
Right.
Along with Scott Hall and Daisy Dukes.
Yeah.
I was in Vegas this weekend. I saw so many chicks wearing the shorts that Scott Hall was wearing in this vignette.
Yeah.
Steiner runs wild. Overhead belly to belly on both guys. Yes, Scott Norton included. Mm-hmm. And then Chono and Muto hit the ring for the DQ.
Mm-hmm.
Double team the Steiners. So now, for those of you keeping track, try to close your eyes and imagine this happening on Raw in 2016. We have 2 baby faces in the ring, and we have 5 heels. 5 or 4? I think we had 5.
Yeah.
5. It was Chono, Muta, and then...
Vicious and Delicious.
Oh, Vicious, Delicious, and Vincent.
Right.
There were 5. So 5 guys in there. So the Steiners clear the ring of both teams. Mm-hmm. Rick gives Norton a German he didn't want to take. Scott tries to lariat Bagwell over the top rope, but Bagwell doesn't make it over, which looked significantly more painful than if he had made it over.
Exactly.
Looked like a legit guillotine, like the 12th century guillotine.
Right.
Babyfaces, because they're on their way to a championship match, the 2 babyfaces single-handedly beat the hell out of 5 heels and get a monstrous reaction.
Brian, you trying to tell me that wins and losses matter?
No, not even wins and losses.
But just
They didn't even win. The point is...
They put them over.
Yeah! These 2 men are on their way to a tag team championship match, and so 2 men single-handedly beat up 5 and sent them packing, and the place goes crazy. A reaction that you would never see today, because in fact you never see 2 men successfully beating up 5 unless it's 2 heels beating up 5 baby faces, which for some reason happens all the time, and as I noted, less guys are over today than ever before. I couldn't even believe the reaction that the Steiners got, and it was so obvious why. Apparently only to me.
The only other thing to note that you didn't include was, at the beginning of the match, Buff Bagwell posing and flexing and gesturing to Scott like, what do you got?
Bagwell's great.
He really is.
God. And then Raven is out there to do an interview here on Nitro. Mm-hmm. And I never realized it before, but Bray Wyatt is playing Raven.
In his promo style, yes.
Raven is out there, and he's just rambling. He's rambling on and playing Jim Morrison, doing wacky poetry. Mm-hmm. Exactly like Bray Wyatt. I have no idea what he's talking about. And exactly like today with Bray Wyatt, I don't give a shit because I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm not intrigued by it. And finally, Gene just stops him and goes, "What are you doing? Trying to Mike Tenay me?" Because Mike Tenay always uses big words. And I fucking died. And I thought, that's one of the reasons you don't have a Gene Okerlund today. Because if Gene did that to Bray Wyatt, he'd be fired. But here it was fucking hilarious. And then Raven bullied Stevie.
Yeah, Stevie mentioned that he had been signed by WCW. This upset Raven, so Raven headbutted him. Next up, we had Chris Benoit versus Mike Enos.
Was this the first time Benoit used the crippler crossface?
Oh, wow, I didn't even think about that.
I can't remember him doing it before today.
Huh.
Maybe he did it on another show, but this was the first time on Nitro.
They had said last night that Benoit finally got rid of Kevin Sullivan. And he said, so tonight I can go back to beating people up.
Delivered.
Yeah, he did. He beat up Mike Enos, stomped him in the corner, hit him with some amazing chops. Mike comes back. He hit knees to the corner. They talk about the return of the Clash of the Champions in Atlanta. I think that might have been
what an irony, because the Clash of Champions is returning in 2016 as well.
It is. Please explain.
I think the September pay-per-view, instead of Night of Champions, is now Clash of the Champions. Even though it's not a combined brand pay-per-view, so it will not, in fact, be a Clash of the Champions. All you need to know about this match is Benoit beat the holy hell out of Enos, then Enos beat the holy hell out of Benoit, then Benoit beat the holy hell out of Enos and submitted him. A perfect match.
Benoit allowed Enos to hit him with a tombstone piledriver at one point.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Anyway, yeah, this is a great match. Benoit is the man, or was the man. That's all I'm...
Would you like me to edit that off the show?
Please do. We get more dancing from the Nitro Girls. We then have La Parka versus Super Calo. As La Parka is coming down the ramp, Kimberly flashes him the diamond cutter sign. Savage runs in with less than a minute into the match and beats up La Parka for the DQ. Of course, the real Diamond Dallas Page runs down, beats up Savage, Curt Hennig. Is that better?
Hennig.
Yeah.
Hennig. There's no N. Well, there's two N's. There's not three N's.
I'm more confused.
Hennig.
Comes out and knocks out Page with a foreign object. Savage hits the elbow on Page.
There's another one. The babyface is fighting the heel.
Right.
And it takes a second heel
Right.
to allow the first heel to beat up the babyface. It's not like the babyface started a fight and then lost a fair fight, which we see all the time today. Mm-hmm. And again, nobody's over.
Anyway, Hennig, how'd I do? Is out.
That was much better, actually.
Okay. Hennig cuts a promo saying that 5 years ago, Page used to ask him for autographs. Page wouldn't last 30 seconds with him. He said he, just like he can't with his wife. Flair comes out, tries to recruit Curt for possibly the Four Horsemen. Lee Marshall did the road report. That's all I'm going to say about that. NWO is out. As they're walking to the ring, the announcers alert us that Nitro would be on Tuesday of next week. No idea why. They brought out Nash in a wheelchair. Somehow, Nash was very beat up, managed to make it into the locker room, change into his gear, and then get into a wheelchair.
Well, you know, he has a lot of help.
Okay. Conan was out with him as well. Nash is appalled that people are accusing him of being Sting last night. He said he would never attack another combatant from behind. Nash stands up and tries to talk to Conan, but then immediately sits back down, holding his back. Conan opens up his shirt to reveal an NWO shirt, and then they slowly wheel Nash to the ring. By the way, they're now referring to Conan as K-Dog.
Yeah, he's K-Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to the match, Harlem Heat versus Six and Scott Hall.
I love this match because Hall has always been way more giving than Nash in his matches. And boy, are there a few matches where Hall was more giving than in this match. Hall sold and sold and sold and sold and sold and sold and sold. And finally he hits an SOS slam. And I thought, finally the man has gotten the heat. And then he sold and sold and sold and sold and sold and sold and sold. Then he got another cutoff, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Heels are going to get the heat. And next thing you know, Hall sold and sold and sold and sold and sold. He sold more than Ric Flair sold for 95% of his opponents during his career. And finally, the ref is distracted. Nash leaps out of his wheelchair and waffles Booker T, leading to Hall hitting the edge. The absolute heat for Nash jumping out of the wheelchair was insane. People were throwing shit in fury at this man for faking an injury, jumping out of the wheelchair, and fucking over the babyfaces who were so clearly going to win the match.
Right.
Because they had dominated 99% of it.
Yeah.
So I will remind everyone of this the next time somebody on Twitter tells me that The Miz gets legit heat before I block them. I couldn't believe how mad the fans were.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing was, it was so patently obvious what was going to happen. Like, everybody had to know that Nash was faking his injury. But when he actually jumped out of the wheelchair and waffled the guy leading to the finish, People were leaping up and down, and they were so mad.
Well, they were in Florida.
It was awesome.
When Harlem Heat gave their interview earlier in the show, they announced that this was going to be a street fight. The announcers at the beginning of this match also said it was going to be a street fight. There was nothing street fight about this match at all. Somebody didn't tell the wrestlers.
Well, the street was K-Dog was out there.
I see.
Patrolling them streets.
That's good an excuse as any. This led us to the Great Muta and Chono, versus Public Enemy.
If you denigrate this match, Craig, I will come over that desk. This was the best, hideous match I have seen in I don't even know how long. When Masahiro Chono gave Rocco Rock a Yakuza kick in the aisle and then waved his hands in the air like he did not care. Fucking died.
And swiveled his hips at the same time.
And then they do a double hot tag where Muta and Johnny Grunge both get the hot tag at the same time, and they both enter the ring. Grunge, of course, is the babyface.
Kinda.
Muta does not give a shit. He runs wild on Grunge, gives him nothing, beats the shit out of him during what is supposed to be Grunge's hot tag. So then Rocco gets a hot tag, and he does everybody's favorite horrible hot tag, where instead of standing in the middle of the ring and having everybody run at you,
right,
and then bounce off your fist, he just starts running all over the place.
Yep.
And he's running to his left, he's running to his right, he punches Chono, takes a bump right in the fucking corner, in the hardest part of the ring, which no one knew back then.
Sure.
And then finally Muta blows the mist at Grunge, Chono Yakuza kicks his head off and pins him. I love this match. It was fucking terrible. But Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock versus the Great Muta and Masahiro Chono. Mm-hmm. Cheeseburger on Twitter is asking me where he can see this match.
At one point, Rocco Rock went for a moonsault press. It didn't work. I don't know how. I really think Chono saved his life because he didn't get all the way over. Disaster was impending.
But averted.
Yes, and Vincent helped out with the distraction, blew the green mist, blah, 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 blah. You already said that. So, yeah, a match, as Vinny would say. Then had the main event, the U.S. title, Ric Flair versus Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett has Deborah with him for whatever reason.
Well, it was at the pay-per-view the night before. She turned on Mongo.
She turned on her husband.
She turned on her husband. Now, I'll explain this to you, Craig, because let me explain what happened in this match.
Okay.
Flair sold and 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 sold.
I've heard this somewhere before.
He played Scott Hall. Then he makes an amazing fiery comeback. The place is going crazy.
Lighting up Jarrett with chops.
Chops the hell out of him. He thrusts his hips at Deborah. He dances. The place goes even more crazy. Mm-hmm. And as he's doing this amazing comeback, they cut to Deborah outside the ring.
Yeah.
In the middle of the match, unmiked, screaming into a camera about why she did what she did. Now, because Ric Flair is doing a comeback, and there's no microphone on her, and the fans are screaming and going crazy about Ric Flair, I can't hear a goddamn word she said, except she was sick of being second fiddle to Mongo. Then it gets better. And it would have to, because that was the worst thing I've seen in a long time. This attempt to have her explain what she did in the middle of a match. In the middle of a comeback.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like Flair was in a chin lock.
Yeah, that would have been better.
So Flair puts Jarrett in the figure four leg lock.
Correct.
In this WCW United States Championship match. The belt is on the line. Mm-hmm. The ref held the belt up before the match started. This is Flair's chance to win the U.S. title he had not held since 1975 or something like that. He puts Jarrett in the figure four, and Mongo comes down to the ring. And let me tell you what Mongo did, everybody. Mm-hmm. Flair has Jarrett in the figure four, about to submit him and about to win the United States title. Mongo strides up the steps. He steps through the ropes, He walks over to where both men are, and then in the politest manner possible, he explains to the ref, "Excuse me, hold on."
Yes.
And he proceeds to stomp a mud hole in Jeff Jarrett.
Right.
At which point, the referee, of course, calls for the bell. Flair does not give two shits that he did not win the title. He's not held since 1975.
Right.
He stomps a mud hole in Jeff Jarrett. Benoit comes down. All of them stomp a mud hole in Jeff Jarrett because, you see, while I would disagree with this 99% of the time, when it comes to the Horsemen, it is perfectly rational that it is more important to them to teach Jeff Jarrett a lesson than for Ric Flair to win the United States title. And that's what they did. They taught him a fucking lesson. I loved it.
Makes total sense now that you explain it that way. But couldn't he have waited at least 30 more seconds?
No. Dude.
I know, I'm just...
If Vinny... If we had all gone to Vegas...
Sure.
And Vinny had stolen Michelle away from you.
It would never happen, but go ahead.
And then Vinny is sitting here about to do the show, and you walked into the room to do the radio show. Are you going to wait till the show is over before you stomp a mud hole in Vinny?
No, I would attack him in the parking lot.
You're going to go right for the guy.
Right.
Now you understand.
Exactly, but why didn't he attack him in the parking lot?
He showed up late. He's Mongo. That may really be what happened.
He got lost on the way there.
I don't know about that. He was across the street.
Sure.
At the hotel. Drowning his sorrows.
Sure. So we had Luger out for the main event segment. He talks about how in one night he got to rack Hogan, Rodman, and Savage all in less than 2 minutes. Luger challenges Hogan for the title at Road Wild. He said if anybody from the NWO wants to fight, he says bring it on. So about 8 NWO guys start walking down to ringside, including a very fake-looking Sting. All the NWO surround the ring. The fake-looking Sting slides in the ring. He pulls off his mask, and there's face paint underneath. He pulls off the wig, and there's long hair underneath. It's the real Sting.
Yeah. Do you remember when Sting was in WCW and they did the same angle where a fake Sting came through the crowd, but then he took off his Sting mask and it was actually Sting?
Right.
Ever thought it was so stupid it had to be a dumb Russo idea? No, it had been done in 1997.
So nobody actually ever hit the ring. NWO, all 8 of them were scared of the 2 men in the ring. And the show ended with the baby faces standing tall in the ring, waiting for a fight.
Yes.
And that was Nitro.
I like this show. Trying to find out when the last time Ric Flair held the United States Championship. 1979. Damn it. 1980.
Well, you said 75, so you were wrong on both.
Yeah, I was wrong by 5 years. I was close.
Sure.
Flair holds a record for having the most reigns at 6, so he must have held it even later than that. The hell did I do? Hold on. Fucking thing.
A taped podcast, everyone.
Yeah, let's see. So Flair won it in 77 the first time, so I was off by 2 years. And then he won it again in 78, 79, 80, 80, and finally in 1996 at Bash at the Beach in Daytona, Florida. I'd forgotten that one. But then it was vacated later because he had shoulder surgery. Well, there you go. There's your history for today, everybody.
Sure.
So, WCW Nitro 97, which was July 22nd, 1997.
Tuesday.
It was a Tuesday night edition for reasons I have no idea why. Something else I might have missed last week. Did the Nitro Girls debut last week?
They did.
Yes.
Okay. They had about 87 dancing segments on the show. They were overexposed in week 2.
I thought it was fine.
Pretty much week 1.
Okay. They announced that Ric Flair would announce a new Horseman tonight, and also Curt Hennig would make his in-ring debut. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan came out for a promo. It took them many, many minutes just to get down to the ring to speak, as they were tired from beating Lex Luger's ass last week, had to lie down. Hogan bragged about recruiting Conan, K-Dog, and Dennis Rodman Said he was still the number one man. Lex was just another guy coming for a spot. He said, in a fair one-on-one fight, Lex Luger will never get me in the torture rack. And he accepted Luger's challenge for a title match at Road Wild in Sturgis.
Cool. I was bored shitless.
More to come.
I made
Another promo where we know that Hogan is awesome.
the very wise decision to use that 10-second skip forward button from the moment they came out to the moment they started to speak. Like that, seriously, they saved at least 2 minutes. Conan versus Tsubasa.
No, Vinny.
K-Dog.
K-Dog.
I beg your pardon. K-Dog versus...
Larry could not believe the man's name was K-Dog.
He was appalled.
And then he couldn't stop saying it.
Yeah. Larry was appalled a grown man would let anyone call him K-Dog.
He mocked and mocked and mocked and mocked. And then at the end, after Conan beat Tsubasa in 30 seconds, Tony says something like, "A big win by Conan." And Larry says, "No, it's K-Dog." His new favorite wrestler, K-Dog.
K-Dog won with the Tequila Sunrise in like 30 seconds. Lord Steven Regal versus Ultimo Dragon.
What was up with the Ultimo Dragon here tonight? He was so over. He was like John Cena under a mask.
It caught him off guard, too.
They didn't even get entrances, and the fans were still losing their minds.
Yeah, he was just standing there like a numbskull when they came back from commercial.
Yeah, and they started this match, and I mean, God, and these men are great. I'm not surprised that this match, short as it was great while it lasted. But yeah, Regal's taking him over, and maybe it's because Regal's big. Maybe it's because Regal's just the guy in a singlet, and here's Ultimo in this cool Halloween costume. But Dragon makes his comeback, and he lights Regal up with kicks, and the place just goes mad. And even Dragon stops and looks around like, what's going on? It caught him so off guard.
He thought somebody was running in.
He may have. So they had a short match. It was very intense, back and forth. They plugged Regal participating in something called the G1.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
And Dragon, literally out of nowhere, hooked a Dragon Sleeper, and Regal tapped, and we had a new TV champion. And as you can imagine, the place went nuts for that. Ric Flair came out. Have the Horsemen had a good segment in Nitro ever?
I like him. More than you, at least.
Flair comes out. First, I will say Flair's leopard print shirt was amazing. That was the best thing about this by far. So he says, "I am here to announce a fourth horseman. I've approved this man. Mongo has approved this man. The Enforcer has approved this man. And Chris Benoit has approved this man. And here he is, our new horseman." And the theme song plays, and out comes Six, who is not the fourth horseman. Six says, "Are you surprised to see
It
me?"
does beg the question, so who was the horseman?
Malenko, wasn't it?
It was Hennig.
Oh,
We shall get to that.
But no, like, why didn't he come out then?
I don't know.
He should have been right behind that curtain waiting to come out.
Yeah, where did he go?
Six jumped him.
I guess.
Sure.
But
Now,
he didn't.
No, he didn't. I know.
well, we'll get into all of this. And all of this is why I hated this. Flair says, "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time." And Six says, "There's no horseman. You're a thing of the past." And Flair says, "We've had our troubles. I know how tough you are. I'm going to walk away." And of course, that led to a sucker punch. Ric Flair did not actually walk away from a fight with Six. So Benoit comes out to get Flair's back, and Six says, "You wouldn't be pulling this if Hall and Nash were here," was the classic tiny chicken shit heel move, which was awesome. And
You wouldn't be so tough if it were 3-on-1.
if it were 3-on-1.
I loved this. I thought everybody was great in this segment.
So everyone just kind of walked away, and I was left in confusion. I guess Six was right. There is no fourth horseman. Flair was lying. Everyone just left.
Well, they set up the 6-man for later.
Yeah, I totally missed they had set up a 6-man. That went flying over my head. And it wasn't a 6-man. We'll get to that. Giant versus the Great Muta. Muta does this awesome... He's also a cartoon character. He does this wacky, over-the-top head scratch as he's pondering what to do to the Giant. He throws a few kicks. Giant no-sells them, grabs him for a chokeslam, but it is a trap. And Muta just spits the mist in his eyes for the DQ. Vincent and Randy Savage come running out, and you've never seen either of these men move faster than this. They are attempting to triple team the Giant to death, but there is a flaw in their plan. It's the Giant. He no-sells the triple teaming. He lays out Muta and Vince. Savage runs for his life. Giant is still enraged and blinded. Luger hits the ring. Giant grabs him and lifts him for a chokeslam. But Luger is able to say, "It's me, Lex." And Giant sets him down, and a geek hits the ring with a towel to wipe his eyes. So they're doing clearly the Giant and Savage at Road Wild.
Still Hog Wild, I believe.
Was it?
Or did they say Road Wild? May have changed by
I believe they only just said Sturgis.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah. Dean Malenko versus Steve McMichael.
The world that I live in, where I got to watch Steve Mongo McMichael wrestle Dean Malenko in a wrestling match.
It's our job.
I've never seen two more polar opposite people in size and in skill in one match.
Oh, come on. They were very similar, really.
Yes, please explain, Brian.
They weren't at all. Malenko nearly kills this guy with the back suplex. Mongo hoists him up and hits him with what I can only describe as a move, because I don't know what the fuck it was.
Fair.
I think it was supposed to be
He had
a
him
tilt-a-whirl.
kind of upside down, and then he fell on him.
I think he tried this tilt-a-whirl or something. And he's sitting there holding Dean upside down, and you can almost see Mongo's head trying, how can I put him down without just dropping him on his head? Because his first reaction was to do a tombstone and kill the guy. And he turned it into some sort of slam. So, as I wrote here, Dean was doing what he could with a big lug. Jarrett runs out to distract Mongo. Deborah is out there as well. She takes the ref. And Dean hits a dropkick to the back, and he hits a small package. You've never seen anyone fight so hard to actually get a small package and get his opponent onto his back.
It was the slowest small package of all time.
This was a battle.
It was so slow that I thought all of a sudden it was going to go the other way.
And Mongo went
You know
up
what I
on
mean?
top.
Yeah.
Like when they're doing a slow motion replay and it goes brrrr and goes backwards and they do it again. That's what I thought was going to happen.
It was like Mongo was actually trying to fight going to his back. And he was like, this is the finish. I'm pinning you.
Oh, he pinned him all right.
He finally pinned him.
This was a beautiful disaster.
That's fair. So Oakland goes to interview Malenko. Jarrett interrupts. He says, we need to watch each other's backs. The Horsemen are after me. Eddie Guerrero is after you. Dean says there is strength in numbers. And Deborah's talking about she only deals with winners. And in the conclusion, Dean said, I will give you my answer when I'm good and ready. And he left. I don't remember what happens here, but Jeff Jarrett, Deborah, and Dean Malenko may be the strangest faction I could put together with the whole Nitro roster here.
And then in WWF, they replaced Malenko with Owen Hart.
That I could see. I could see that much better. That worked great.
That's true.
Was Deborah with Jarrett then?
Yeah.
I've actually forgotten that. Eddie Guerrero versus Hector Guerrero in what may have been the most unintentionally funny match I've seen in a long time.
Dude, this match was awesome.
It was
if
awesome,
you denigrate this match, I'll kill you.
Can we do about like 5 or 10 minutes on Hector's tights?
Fuck, you can talk about whatever. I totally forgot this match happened. Mike Tenay, in his records, could not find a single time that they had ever wrestled in a singles match before.
Quite certain in the 1990s, Mike Tenay traveled with thick textbooks and binders.
I believe so.
There's no doubt in my mind.
There were things that Eddie Guerrero did that were superior to what Hector did, but there were also things that Hector did that he was superior to Eddie. And they had a wondrous, wacky little match with Eddie doing all of the craziest high flying from the 90s and Hector responding with all of the craziest high flying from the 70s.
Yes, that's exactly right.
A fucking time machine match, and it was awesome.
At one point, Eddie honestly saved his life.
There was a point that where I was leading to about the funniness. Hector, I believe the idea was he was running towards the ropes, like the middle of the ropes.
Right.
And I think the idea was he would grab the top rope with both hands and do like a handspring back over, and Eddie would run underneath him. The guy's doing the corner all the time. I've never seen anyone do it in the middle of the ropes before. But Hector jumps, and he reaches out for the ropes, and he misses.
Yeah.
And the noise he made when he missed, as all of Hector Guerrero's life flashed before his eyes.
It's like Coyote hitting the bottom of the canyon floor.
That is exactly what it was. He froze at the top of his arc. He's about to drop, and that's what Eddie went over and got him. The noise he made, I can't emulate it. I won't try, but I howled with laughter. Then he used a Kiwi roll, which always makes me laugh as well. And Eddie began to bite him, and Hector was doing these amazing bug-eyed screams to sell the biting.
He was being bit.
By his little brother.
Fuck.
Probably used to bite him legitimately. So, eventually, Eddie hit a low blow, a power bomb, and a frog splash for the win. So, Malenko returns. He jumps Eddie, powerbombs the snot out of him, puts him in the cloverleaf. Place is going nuts. Hector comes to and looks over and realizes this man is beating my brother. And my brother and I just had a fight, but damn it, he's still my brother. He goes over to Dean and says, you gotta let him go. And Dean won't. So Hector goes after Dean. This goes badly for Hector. Dean whips his ass, puts him in the cloverleaf. Eddie recovers. He looks over. Now he sees Dean beating up his brother, and Eddie says, fuck it. And he leaves.
Loved every last single moment of this.
That was tremendous.
God, it was great.
J.J. Dillon interviewed Gene Okerlund. Oh, God, this. He says, I am here to announce a new talent signing. Stevie Richards comes out.
Okay, before you recap this, I want everyone to just think about Raven and ECW and Paul Heyman, the Revolution, and Raven leaving ECW to come here, and this is what they've come up with.
As Heyman liked to call Raven, the David Koresh of wrestling himself. He was a cult leader. He was a bad man. It was grim and there was a gravity to when Raven was on screen. This is an evil force. Stevie Richards, who always was the comic foil, he interrupts. He says, there's a new talent signing, and it's me. I'm the new signee. And Dillon says, yes, it is true. You are signed. Now, where's Raven? Stevie says, oh, he's in the front row. Here, I'll show you. And they all walk down the ramp to where Raven is sitting in the front row. And Dillon says, Raven, here is your contract. You are such a big star. We have agreed to everything you want. And Raven is confused. Everything I want, he asks. He looks at Stevie. Stevie says, yes, I have negotiated this contract on your behalf. It's a great deal. You're making almost as much money as I am. Go ahead and sign.
So in storyline, Stevie is not a victim. He's a fucking moron who deserves his beatings.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that part's totally true. Everything with Stevie here was fine. He was entertaining, and he is supposed to be a geek. So he was a comedy geek who acted and was treated like a comedy geek. I have no problem with Stevie here. But Raven, upon learning that his lackey has fucked up and negotiated a deal Raven didn't want in the first place, he goes to one of his promos. And it was these were the spooky Bray Wyatt promos.
These are Bray Wyatt promos.
Yes. It's largely nonsense, but he's talking about lost souls and empty humanity.
I can't remember if I liked him at the time, but I hate him now. It's just so stupid.
I hardly ever saw him in ECW, honestly, and I don't know if I like his promos here or not, but I've seen enough to go back and realize there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If you go back, as I later did, go back and watch Raven's promo packages from ECW, and even though the content was very similar to this, they were more like videos. He'd be like sitting in an empty classroom, reflecting on his miserable childhood or whatever. Those were awesome. This here, when he starts to recite poetry, and it would have been pretty lame on its own, but Stevie and J.J. Dillon and Gene Okerlund, they all just roll their eyes. Oh, here we go. Mm-hmm. Immediately, they turned him into a giant joke.
And it didn't do him any favors when they had him do the gimmick where he's rubbing the inside of his right arm or his left arm because, see, that's where the heroin goes.
Yeah.
And rubbing the nose and all that.
Yeah.
The one thing, it would be one thing if Jake Roberts were cutting like a great promo and the announcers were rolling their eyes, you just kind of be hoping that Jake would beat their ass. Raven wasn't even cutting a good promo and they were rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck he was talking about, as usual.
Also needed to be said that Stevie Richards was wearing a Bullet Boys t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Raven, a Dinosaur Jr.
Yes.
Great band.
Yeah. So eventually he tore up the contract. He decked Stevie. He calmly sat back down. Now a complete clown here on Nitro. And they went over to Stevie and he made some more jokes and that was that. Lex Luger versus Scott Norton.
Yeah.
Went like a minute.
So you're telling me that Lex Luger is getting Hulk Hogan for the title shot in Sturgis, and he couldn't even beat Scott Norton?
Nope. No.
I don't know how the ratings did this week, but Raw had to have killed this show.
No, fuck no. They were slaughtered by this show.
Even though it's on different nights?
88 weeks, Daddy.
Wow.
Yeah. So it went like a minute. NW attacks for the DQ. And the funny thing is, they attack for the DQ and then Lex kicks all their asses anyway. So why couldn't he have gotten the win?
I don't have any idea.
He cuts a promo. He starts to address Hogan. Hogan interrupts before Lex can even get to his point. Hogan says, Lex, you're a Hollywood wannabe. Your day's coming in Sturgis. And Lex goes charging up the ramp, but Hogan and the NWO flee. Hall and Nash arrived.
I'm not a man that likes to harp on what people are wearing on these shows. Kevin Nash showed up in the shortest pair of plaid boxers
Yeah.
with his
More
skinny
boxers.
ass chicken legs hanging out.
And Scott Hall was wearing the exact same Daisy Duke shorts he was wearing the week before.
You know,
I can go ahead.
I know that his nickname was Big Lazy.
Huh.
But this was a level of lazy I did not even think Kevin Nash could attain.
See, I must disagree with you there.
Didn't even put his fucking pants on.
Of course you would, Vinny.
And he was coming out on national television.
Of course Vinny's going to disagree.
Please,
I am dressed barely any better right now. But
You're wearing pants.
I'm wearing shorts. But they're longer. They're not plaid. They don't look like boxers.
You've got your underwear under those shorts.
I do.
He was wearing
Thank
only
God.
his underwear.
Thank God.
Now, here's why I disagree with you. I don't think this is laziness. I think this was a deliberate attempt. He saw what his buddy Sean had gotten away with the night before and said, I can top that. Wait till he sees what I wear on TV. And he went out there in what appeared to be boxer shorts.
These men had a reputation for being really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yes, they did.
I must have had the most non-cool high school in the whole fucking world. That in my teens, I was watching this going, look at these cool motherfuckers. I'm going to go to school tomorrow in just my boxers.
I guess.
And another note, you were in high school in 97. That is
I guess
that
it
is
was 5
false.
years later, but still. My community college must have been so goddamn boring.
As someone else who went to Bothell High, I can confirm was the least cool high school in the world. So K-Dog ran up to talk to them, but they decided to talk elsewhere to avoid the cameras. Wrath and Mortis versus La Parka and Psychosis.
You know?
They did the... Okay.
I just gotta say that it's weird because this was bad, but it was awesome. And I don't even know why.
It was a complete 100% styles clash. No four of these men had any idea what to do with anyone else in the ring.
No.
Now, before the match began, they did the intros, and they cut backstage where Flair is having a discussion with Hennig. And you can't hear the whole thing, but you can see Flair saying, why did you leave me hanging like that? Why weren't you there when I was there to introduce the fourth horseman? So you see, Hennig was going to be the new horseman. Six didn't jump him. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't delayed. He just left Flair to dry out there like a dick. And Flair, the moron, tried it again later.
Well, I think the storyline is that Flair wants him to be the horseman, and he thinks he's going to be the horseman. But Hennig doesn't want to be the horseman. Because actually, you missed a show. That's exactly what happened last week.
I see.
Like, Flair was... Hennig is doing an interview. Flair came out, acted like they were best friends, and dragged him off to be a horseman, and Hennig did not want to go. So that is the storyline.
Okay. Still, then, okay, Flair's then an idiot in a different way. Because before, he was an idiot who let this guy... I thought he was an idiot who let this guy lie to him and then just let it go. And, spoiler alert, eventually this guy kept lying to him and stabbed him in the back. So now he's an idiot because he thinks this guy will bend to his will, and if I say he's the horseman, of course he's going to just say yes.
He's overconfident.
Yes.
He thinks no man in the world would turn down the opportunity to be a horseman.
Which begs the question, have you been watching Nitro the past 2 years?
Well, maybe Hennig has.
Yeah. Point is, Flair looks dumb. Anyway you paint it. So they're out here, Parka and Psychosis and Wrath and Mortis. And Psychosis tries to run on the ropes and nearly dies. Park is taking flip bumps for back elbows. It's two heel teams that don't know what to do with each other. They're just making stuff up as they go. Sonny Ono and James Vandenberg chase each other around the ring. And finally, Wrath and Mortis hit a powerbomb neckbreaker combo and get the win. And Parka breaks a chair over Mortis' back. Wrath hits him with a brogue kick. Eventually, it all settles down. At the end, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Nothing was accomplished here.
This was an absolute mess. Psychosis running up the ropes to do a move and then trips and falls to the outside from the top rope.
Funniest thing was, he does this, and they're talking about how, well, that's why you call them high-risk moves. The crazy thing is, he'll get up and he'll try that again in his next match. Tony says, I better try this again here in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, and then he didn't. Buff Bagwell versus Booker T. By this point, I had heard the NWOB team theme music at least 90 times on this 2-hour show, and I was quite sick of it. So the story they were telling was that Booker, as talented and dangerous as he was used to singles competition, or excuse me, used to tag team competition. Now he's out there by himself, no Stevie Ray, no Sherry, and there's 3 NWO guys out there, and he has no idea what to do as they are constantly interfering and cheating. He keeps making comebacks, and someone will cheat to cut him off. At last, Vincent takes the ref. Bagwell is down selling. Norton climbs up in the apron and shouts Booker's name. A few times. Booker! Booker! Finally, Booker hears him, turns around, walks toward him. Norton drops him with a lariat. And Bagwell hits the blockbuster and gets the pin.
So is the preview of the match that killed WCW.
It was.
It was also there was a great thing between Bagwell and Nick Patrick. Nick Patrick ends up at one point shoving down Bagwell because Bagwell got in his face, and Bagwell begged off like Ric Flair. It was tremendous.
Dude, Bagwell, I say this every week. His reputation was totally killed by that Tacoma match.
Yeah.
Well, it was after he broke his neck, he was never the same.
I see. Yeah, young Bagwell was awesome. He was, because right before he joined the NWO, he looked like he was going to be the next great babyface. He's joined the NWO. He's a great heel, great tag guy, great singles guy. This Bagwell was awesome. Oakland interviewed Ray Jr. He's out there on crutches. He's trying to avoid surgery. Heal naturally, he said. So he knew that being a wrestler came with a risk of injury, and Ray in 1997 was a really bad promo. And Conan came out to save the day, basically. He comes out, he kicks Ray's crutch away, says he should be in school playing a sandbox somewhere, and he's intimidating him. He's about to go kill Ray once and for all. When all the other luchadors come out, they stand by Ray. Ray says, Conan, you know nothing about loyalty and family. And Conan says, the Wolfpack's my family now. They've got my back.
First off, I thought Conan was awesome here as a dick heel. Ray comes out and Gene looks at him and says, this man, pound for pound, in my estimation, this man is as tough as they come. Wow. Pound for pound, he's tough.
125
I thought they might say pound for pound, he's the best wrestler in this company. No, pound for pound, he's a tough man. Cool.
M. Wall Street, who's still doing that silly anti-WCW gimmick.
Well, he can't be NWO, remember?
This is worse.
I know.
To have him do anything else. Anyway, he wrestled Curt Hennig in Hennig's big debut.
What a debut.
Crowd chanting for DDP. Hennig wins in a minute with a perfect plex.
Problem here with this deal is that DDP ran in after the match and essentially they brawl and he gives him the diamond cutter. They have DDP come in through the crowd like he's Roman Reigns.
Uh-huh.
And the problem is, in order to get to the ring in time, he has to head out like halfway through this match.
Right.
So everybody sees him and they start cheering, and he totally killed the finish.
The match was about 35 seconds, and DDP had to start his entrance 15 seconds into the match.
Could you just have him like run in from just like wait till the match is over, maybe? I don't know.
And the crowd and the camera panned back, and you never actually saw Hennig hit the perfect plex.
No.
It was the world's shittiest debut.
It was up there.
And then he got beaten up and laid out.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mr. Perfect.
Kevin Nash and Scott Hall versus Chris Benoit and Ric Flair. First of all, I was not aware there had been a challenge for this match in that 6 Flair promo earlier. Second of all, as the announcers were talking, I thought they were saying it was going to be a 6-man. So it's 2 horsemen out there against 3 NWO guys. I guess, okay, it's a handicap match. Turns out I was wrong on all of this. It was a tag team match. Match was a lot of fun, is the good news. Especially when Hall and Benoit were in there. That was great. They interfered. 6 interfered to cut Flair off. And when 6 interfered, that was the point I realized he was not dressed to wrestle and this is not a handicap match. It was just a tag match. God bless Ric Flair, but they hit him with about 800 moves in a row.
By the way, was this a title match?
Don't know.
They won, so it doesn't matter.
I know, but it was last week they established that the Steiners were the number 1 contenders.
That would mean it wasn't a title match then. It was just a match.
Pretty sure they said it was a title match.
Anyway, the point of this is they beat on Flair for less time than they beat on John Cena on Raw on Monday. Just want to bring that up.
That was like 9 or 10 minutes.
They beat on that fucker for hours, it seemed.
So, Benoit gets a hot tag. He is running wild. Of course, it's great.
God, what a hot tag. He was half their size,
Oh, yeah.
but his hot tag made him look twice their size.
He was half their size and half their number.
He wrestles big.
And you still felt bad for them.
And I got to give Nash credit. Hall always sold for everybody. But Kevin Nash here, probably because he was booting the guy in the face for the pin, he sold for Benoit like a crazy man.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it also was he probably figured if I don't sell for this guy, he's going to make me.
Exactly.
So I may as well sell for him the best that I can.
That's
I
probably
could do
true.
this the hard way or the easy way.
Yes. So Flair gets distracted fighting Six. This leaves Benoit alone against the two giants. And eventually he is overwhelmed and Nash hits him with a big boot and pins him. As this is going on, Six goes after Flair's bad shoulder, puts him in the chicken wing. Mongo tries to make the save there, and the Steiners come out and they just stood there.
Because they're the number one contenders.
Yeah. They had to stare down with the outsiders, and that was the end of the show. It definitely felt like this show was made up on the fly, but it was pretty fun.
It was fun. It was not as fun as Raw.
Raw was more fun. Well, speaking of what's to come and awesome things in WCW, went to watch Retro Nitro number 98 from July 28th, 1997. Now, before we begin here, I accidentally started on the wrong show. I loaded up the last show in July from 1998. One year from now. Would you like to guess what I saw opening the show?
NWO.
NWO beat down on somebody with a DQ finish.
You're very close. Hulk Hogan and the NWO cutting a promo on a celebrity.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
He ran that horse deep into the ground. So, back here on the real show, 98, show number 98, July 20th, 1997. The Nitro Girls danced. Is it important that I mention this every time they do this? It happens like 6 times a show and goes nowhere.
No.
Okay, I'll skip it.
Well, maybe someday it'll go somewhere.
If it ever goes somewhere, I'll let you know.
One of them will marry Sean.
Whisper.
Anyway, go on.
That was her name.
I know. I didn't want to talk about anything else that happened.
Vicious and Delicious versus Ric Flair and Curt Hennig.
There was
I could have watched this match about 18 times in a row.
Because it was cool.
there was 3 men that were dramatic oversellers.
Yes!
And then there was Scott Norton.
Here's what happened in this match. I'm convinced of it. There's no doubt in my mind this is what happened. These 4 men, Scott Hall, Buff Bagwell, Ric Flair, and Curt Hennig, they're backstage at Nitro in 1997, and they are watching wrestling from the future. And somehow they get a copy of Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam. And Flair says, I bet I can outsell Shawn Michaels in this match. Hennig says, I can sell better than you. And Bagwell says, I can sell better than either of you. And Norton says, I will throw you men around. So they went out in this match. And like the very first thing they do, Hennig does a waist lock on Norton. Norton just throws a back elbow. Curt does a flip bump.
He did. He did a flip.
He did a flip. Then Norton threw a chop. Hennig goes flying over the top rope to the floor.
He did a full salt. After he fell out of the ring, he did a full somersault. It was amazing.
So Flair tags in, and he's doing every Ric Flair match ever, which is I'm going to have these guys press slam me and power slam me and backdrop me and chop me, and I'll cry and scream every time. It's great. And it's Bagwell doing all the offense here, and he decides I'm going to join in too. So he drops Flair with a big drop kick, and he turns his back to Hennig, and he does his big biceps pose. Hennig comes in, hits him from behind, and leaves. Bagwell sells this by grabbing his head and like just falling down, then climbing back to his feet, jumping up as high as he can, and going straight down to his back.
He bumped twice.
For just a shot to the head. Oh, it was great. So finally, things settle down. We got a heat segment on Flair. Norton hits an avalanche. And I guarantee you, Flair sold this avalanche more than some guys will sell in entire matches these days. And in fact, on this episode of Nitro. Finally, he rakes Norton's eyes, Flair does, and it's time for the hot tag. Now, I believe he could have reached over with his feet on the ground and tagged in Hennig. At most, 1 step to get there. But that wouldn't suffice. He jumped as high as he could straight up, and then as high as he could straight down, and slapped Hennig's hand to get this hot tag. So Hennig's running wild. Six comes out, pulls Flair's trunks down. Flair and his ass fought him off and attacked Norton, and Hennig pinned Bagwell with a perfect plex. That was fun.
It was a lot of fun. The only thing that I didn't like about this was, first off, Six, he did not help or hurt anybody. Like, he distracted Flair, but it didn't cost him the match or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so, the way that they did it, Flair has to trip Norton. But at the same time, he's fucking brawling with Six. And so he has to do two things at the same time, which he barely pulled off, by the way. And it was kind of a mess, and I just thought, why was Six even down there? This would have been a perfectly fine match without the guy, because nothing he did meant anything.
Well, they're feuding.
They're feuding, but it didn't lead to anything. So,
right.
Feud later.
Sure.
Don't fuck up my match.
Gene Okerlund brings Lex Luger out for a promo. Lex is wearing a big gold chain, sleeveless plaid flannel tucked into his jeans, and big boots. Not like wrestling boots, hiking boots, or combat boots. And I have a cousin who worked at a shoe store in Atlanta. He once helped Lex Luger, and apparently this is how he dresses in real life.
That's right. I loved that. If you're a fan of mixed martial arts nowadays, you've seen all of the training videos of dudes running with a parachute, and they're sweating, and they're training, and they're rolling, and they're kicking, and they're doing all of this. That's how men train for a fight nowadays. But in 1997, Luger was training for a match with Hulk Hogan by lifting weights.
Oh, yes. He removed the plaid flannel shirt. He flexed his biceps and said, I guess you could say I'm peaking for Sturgis.
That's
wow.
what he said.
Okay, I'm sure he was. Then he said, I have spoken to the WCW officials, and before Sturgis, next week on Nitro, I am getting a title match against Hulk Hogan. Everyone cheers and goes crazy. He says, I have put everyone in the NWO in the rack. Hulk Hogan, I have put you in the rack twice, and I have heard you submit twice. Next week, Hulk, you bring a chiropractor to Nitro. You bring a masseuse to Nitro, because I'm going to put you in the rack again. That was a hell of a promo.
Dude, it was an awesome promo. He was a great babyface, cutting a fiery promo to get people excited for a championship match next week.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome. Maybe I was confused. I like this show.
Prince Iaukea versus Ultimo Dragon.
Oh, I remember now.
Yeah.
I hated this show. This goddamn match sucked.
This was the exact opposite of the opener. It was completely unintense, and no one sold anything.
Somebody on Twitter was defending Iaukea.
Why?
They fucking didn't watch this match, I'll tell you that
This
much.
was not the week. They went through the motions. Dragon won with the Dragon Sleeper.
Oh, dude, let's not gloss over this. Ultimo Dragon does not have bad matches.
No.
And he had one here. It's like the people who love The Miz, and if a four-way with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Cesaro is good, it's because of The Miz.
Excuse me?
But if a match with Darren Young sucks, it's because of Darren Young. You know whose fault this match was? It wasn't fucking the Ultimo Dragon, it was Prince Iaukea. The match falls fucking apart, and Dragon just says, fuck it, and puts him in the Dragon Sleeper, and that's the end.
He had a tough time doing that, too, because
Hideous.
Sit still.
Yeah, a guy couldn't even just lay on his back.
Okerlund brings out Ric Flair, who says it's a done deal. Curt Hennig is the new fourth horseman.
Dude, we're back to your favorite Flair horseman gimmick here. The last couple of weeks, he was serious. Now, all he cares about is taking the guys out to fuck chicks.
This was the best because Flair comes out. He's being crazy Ric Flair. He's strutting. He's smiling. He's wooing. And then he stops and he looks over and there's a blonde in short shorts.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the mood changed.
So, yes, it is... He says, Curt Hennig's the new horseman. Hennig comes out and says, no, I'm not. I never agreed to this. Flair says, I get it. You don't want to make your wife mad while you're out there partying with me. So you're laying low.
Yeah, just say it on national television. That's going to change Kurt's mind.
Benoit and Michael come out. They're all there to induct Curt. And here's the moment where Flair... it's like he captured a Pokemon. A hot blonde and Daisy Duke shows up. He just pulls her out of nowhere and says, Curt, you come party with us tonight and be 5 women for each of us.
Benoit just looks at him.
Yeah.
There is a moment. Actually, this is important because this is great. Flair is being all crazy. Hennig is being, for lack of a better word, wishy-washy. And Benoit and Michael are there. And they're just there. They're not really doing anything. But when Hennig goes to leave, Hennig's last line is, I'm still a free agent, but maybe after the party tonight, maybe then I'll be a horseman. and he starts to go up the ramp, and he exchanges looks with Benoit, and he stops. He stops his tracks, and he looks over at Mongo, and Mongo is giving him the same look. And the look is, just so you know, there is an invitation, but if you aren't with us, then you are against us.
I saw this so totally different than you did. The way I saw it, Hennig just had one line, which is, I'm a free agent. And he kept trying to get it out, and crazy fucking Flair just kept interrupting him. And finally, Hennig just gave up.
That's possible, too. This is all possible, too. We then had Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael versus the Texas Hangmen.
A death penalty gimmick here in 1997.
I didn't look at...
We're hangmen.
Do we know who the Hangmen are?
So we wear masks.
Yeah.
Because
they're
we're
executioners.
executioners, yeah.
All I know about the Hangmen is Mike Tenay said they were a veteran tag team from the Midwest. They had competed in the AWA, and of
Maybe
course...
Texas, by the way.
Sure. And because it's Mike Tenay, he had to say they were from, or they competed in the Orient.
Well, according to CageMatch.net, the Texas Hangmen...
I'm sure there had to have been more than two.
Well, this claims they worked in WCW, but these are all matches in 2000. This version was Tough Tom and Mean Mike.
They did say they were in AWA as well.
Otherwise known as Disorderly Conduct.
Was that Mike Enos?
No, that's Tough Tom and Mean Mike.
Okay.
Good answer, right, Vince?
Sure.
Blackjack Bennett, Mean Mike, Mike Moran, Mike Richards, Psycho, Texas Hangman #1, and Juice.
I do seem to recall Psycho the Hangman had doing Saturday night matches. Or Hangman Psycho. Maybe that was it. Anyway, they get a phone call here from the Outsiders. They're calling in to talk trash. The point of this to establish was the Outsiders were not at the building. They had to call in. So they had lines such as when Nash said, Shivani, we're at your house watching your 13-inch black and white TV. Shivani says, it's not funny.
Tony was so mad that they made fun of him for being poor.
Maybe even true. Maybe he did have a 13-inch black and white TV. So Mongo, first of all, the first thing he does is he does the funniest missed top rope move ever. Mongo goes to the top rope, which is a joke by itself. And he's standing up there, and he lifts one arm high in the sky. And he jumps down, and the Texas Hangman gets his foot up, and Mongo just comes out and he headbutts the dude's foot.
Mongo's horrible.
This is not his best night.
He had his days,
So bad this
and
night.
he had his days.
Now, who wants to talk about the tombstone?
There's
Oh.
a GIF on my Twitter if you want to look at it.
Hey, he didn't kill the guy,
Almost.
but he didn't.
Well, first of all,
You know what? The guy that saved this was Nick Patrick.
let's start at the beginning.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're doing a four-way. Benoit's brawling with a Hangman in one corner. Mongo's brawling with the other Hangman in the other corner. And the brawl between Mongo and the Hangman stops. And they have a discussion. They are on different pages. And I guess the Hangman said, tombstone me.
They were on different books.
And Mongo said, what? Hangman said, tombstone me. Mongo said, are you sure? Yeah, tombstone me. So after about an hour of this, Mongo, I generously say, picks him up in position for a tombstone. And from the get-go, things are going horribly awry. He's stumbling left. He is stumbling right. At any moment, you think he's going to drop this guy on his head and kill him. Then he stumbles forward into the corner, squishing Nick Patrick.
Nick Patrick puts his right hand up and actually steadies the two
Yes.
and gives him a little shove, and then the tombstone is complete.
The tombstone is complete. He is not killed somehow. Then everyone looks at each other for a while. Benoit puts the dude in a crossface. The guy taps, but his feet are under the ropes, so Nick Patrick says, no, not a finish. So Benoit has to spin the guy around, and finally the match ends. What a cliff this fell off of.
Yeah, this sucked. I remembered why I didn't like this match and this show.
Nitro Girls were back for their third segment. Alex Wright and Chris Jericho.
They were having a match. Not a good match, not a bad match. Just the match. And then Alex Wright Germans him and pins him and wins the television title. And Jericho vanishes into thin air. What the fuck?
Cruiserweight title, right?
I thought it was a TV title. Maybe it was a cruiserweight
I think
title.
Ultimo was the TV champion.
You may be.
He won a championship here. There was a point here when Alex had the heat, and he went up and he hit a top rope knee drop. And I don't know how to explain this because simultaneously it looked like the fakest knee drop of all time, and yet at the same time looked like he absolutely killed him. It certainly was not what he was trying to do. And he missed the same knee drop later, and yes, he had a suplex out of nowhere and won the match and the belt.
Wrong man won.
Indeed. Gene introduced Dean Malenko and, more importantly, Jeff Jarrett. The outfit Jeff had here. Jeff went out and found the shiniest shirt of all time. This had to be taken from the space station or something.
This was something that you would see in the old Buck Rogers TV shows.
Yes. It looked like something from a solar panel reflector or something.
Yeah, like one of those solar suits when you're trying to lose a bunch of weight.
Kinda, but not a. It was more free flowing than that.
Right.
Not as starchy. So he's got this shirt and he says, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tuck this into my white jeans." And he comes out and he's doing his strut and the shiny shirt and the white jeans and the polished white cowboy boots. Mm-hmm. This is the best outfit of all time. So he comes out like that. Deborah comes out being Deborah, and over to the side and lagging behind is Dean Malenko, avoiding eye contact, pretending they're not there, does not want to be associated with them at all. So they come out for a promo, and Dean and Jeff say it's very important that we watch each other's back. We both have a lot of enemies. You don't like the Guerreros. I don't like the Horsemen. I don't like the Guerreros either. As they're talking, the new champion Alex Wright passes by, and he and Deborah exchange looks. And as Alex goes to leave, Deborah follows him. She whispers in his ear. I don't know what she said, but Alex seemed to like it.
I can imagine.
Jarrett and Dean totally oblivious to this. Alex leaves. Deborah comes back, cuts her wacky promo, and Jarrett vows to finish off Flair once and for all, and that's that.
So here's the story. She, in storyline, left her husband for Jeff Jarrett. And then when Jeff's back is turned, she's whispering sweet nothings into Alex's.
First good-looking champion comes along.
Well, it sounds about right. Based on history.
We know she can't be trusted. Diamond Dallas Page versus Syxx.
You know, people used to hate DDP. They thought he was overpushed. They thought he only got his push because he was Bischoff's neighbor.
Earned every bit of this.
You know what? He was always super over. He always had good matches. People loved his finish. This guy was a star.
I mentioned the insane reaction Steve Austin got on Raw tonight. I don't think anyone else in either show got a bigger reaction than Page got here.
No.
It was ridiculous how much they loved him. Thunderous chants of DDP as Syxx is working him over. So Vincent runs out to distract Page, but this just leads to Page hitting the Diamond Cutter to a huge pop.
Well, let's talk about what happened because it was very modern, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad. He goes for the Diamond Cutter. Vincent jumps on the apron. DDP is distracted. Syxx goes for the Buzz Killer, but DDP hits a Diamond Cutter anyway. The ref is with Vincent, and then Hennig hits the ring behind the ref's back, clonks DDP, throws Syxx on top of the pin. This could have been the finish on any Monday Night Raw of the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Very true. They were sure to point out that Hennig's hand was loaded.
Yes. So Syxx wins. We have Hector Guerrero versus Dean Malenko.
Announcers noted that Curt Hennig,
Okay, go ahead.
it's very important, Curt Hennig, Flair thinks he's a horseman, but Hennig ran in here and helped the NWO win. And so now Tony doesn't know what's going on.
No, Tony said clearly Curt Hennig is part of the NWO.
That's right. But Tenay said he's a free agent and he's going to go to whoever gives him the biggest money offer. So actually, this storyline was making sense.
Oh, yeah, they were portraying that Hennig had no loyalty, and that was very clear.
But Flair's a numbskull.
Flair is an idiot, is the storyline. Which, if you've watched The Horseman for the past year, makes sense.
Flair is overconfident. He thinks no man would turn down a spot in the Four Horsemen.
Flair is a poon hound and has nothing else on his mind.
Flair's thinking with the wrong head.
Right.
That's totally different from what I said.
Well, it's not wrong. They don't.
You're right, but yes.
They don't contradict each other.
Flair's point is, what man would turn down all this poon as well as money?
Why is it funny when you say it?
Well, the show's peaked. Okay. All right. Hector Guerrero versus Dean Malenko.
This was not as good as last week.
I don't even care about the match. I don't care about the match at all. Often on these shows, they will announce personal appearances and autograph signings. If you show up at the building early, the outsiders will be the signing autographs. Or if you go to the hotel, DDP will be signing autographs. They go through these appearances on a very highly rated television show on nationwide cable. He said at a certain time on a certain date, you could meet Bobby Heenan at Piggly Wiggly at Oak Creek.
Vinny, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you leave my house and you turn left, and then you turn left again, and then at the first stop sign you turn right, and then at the end of the road you turn left,
After the fire.
and then you take another right, and you go past People's Storage, founded by Dwayne Johnson. There used to be a Piggly Wiggly right there.
There was a Piggly Wiggly by my grandma's house.
There was a Piggly Wiggly not more than 3 minutes from your grandmother's house in Edgewood.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
You know what I'm
if
talking about.
Bobby
Yeah.
Heenan had been at that Piggly Wiggly, I'd have lost all respect for the man.
That's the key.
But there was such a thing right there.
It was, I don't remember it very well, but it was just a supermarket, right?
Yeah.
Does it pop up at the frozen food
Kind
aisle?
of. It was
That
kind of
was-
like a cross between a supermarket and a Rite Aid.
I know.
Okay, this is no better.
I know they would sell underage children booze.
Well, that's why okay, now I
Oh, yeah?
understand.
That's true.
Wow.
Now I understand.
Yeah. Well,
I never did that, Craig.
Not children, really. Just
I never did anything wrong.
mischievous teenagers.
So no one cared about this match, including us. They were all just waiting for Eddie to come out, and he never did, but Jarrett and Deborah did instead. They distracted Hector. Dean put him in the cloverleaf and won. And then Chavo ran out to tend to Hector, and he got jumped from behind, and the Malenko-Jarrett Express beat him up.
This was the third fucking match on this show where somebody came out to distract somebody. I hate that distraction finish, and now I gotta watch it in 97.
Yeah.
Now, one good thing was Dean and Hector did a spot that scared the shit out of me, but was actually awesome. And that is where Dean whipped him into the ropes, and he went for a high backdrop, and Hector went straight up and started coming straight down onto his head and turned it into a sunset flip. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah, I do know what you're talking about, yes.
Very old school,
Yes.
but it was awesome.
Conan drags Okerlund out on stage for a promo. He runs down Rey Mysterio.
First, Gene is upset that Conan called him an old man. And Gene claims, I was carded last night. And Conan says, oh yeah, carded to the old folks' home? I was like, there's no way these two fuckers planned this.
No.
But they were awesome.
I like it when Conan looks in the camera and says, if your TV looks worn out and fuzzy, don't adjust the picture. It's just Gene.
Yeah, the other thing about Gene is people underestimate, like Gene was kind of a cartoon character at the end, but one thing that Gene did that was so awesome was Gene would listen, unlike all of these numbskulls today.
Right.
And he would hear the guy do the interview, and if it appeared to Gene that the guy wasn't clear enough about what he was saying,
Yes.
Gene would cut the promo for him and then let the guy continue.
Another thing Gene was great at, he, as you said, listened to the promo and would actually react.
Yes.
He wouldn't stand there like a statue holding a mic.
Yes. Why not just get one of those creepy Japanese robots to hold a fucking mic backstage at Raw and ask stupid
That'd
questions?
be a significant improvement.
It would. There would be far more charisma.
So Conan eventually cuts his promo. He runs down Rey Mysterio. He takes credit for every Mexican wrestler in WCW.
It's all true, by the way.
But he brought them all in.
Yeah.
He said, I brought all you in. I'm going to take you all out. I'm starting tonight with La Parka. Great promo. Got to the point. Was done. Marshall did his road report. Nothing to say. Giant comes out to wrestle Great Muta. Randy Savage appears in the crowd. I guess they are wrestling it as a Hog Wild.
It is now Hog Wild.
Hog Wild. So they are cutting promos on each other.
Enzo, I think, wrote Savage's promo.
I think it's Road Wild, by the way.
At some point, it became Road Wild.
It is Road Wild this year, that's right.
Okay. I screwed it up last week, and now I've screwed us all up again. I'll probably screw it up after the show. Regardless, Savage just runs him down for a while. And Giant says, you stay in the crowd. You take your beating at Sturgis. What I do to Muta, It's just a taste of what I'm going to do to you, Sturgis. Maybe that's why I'm confused. They never said the name of the show. They said the name of the city.
It's possible they didn't know what they were going to call it yet. They'd just been told you can't call it Hog Wild.
Because of Harley Davidson?
I think so. Although I don't know. I mean, that is why, but how do you trademark hog? Is that not a generic term for a motorcycle? Is that only a Harley Davidson?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think American bikes are hogs, the big ones.
Well, then you shouldn't be able to trademark that. Unless the name of the Sturgis rally was Hog Wild.
That could be.
If Harley Davidson had a Sturgis rally that they called Hog Wild, then WCW would not be able to use that name. So that's possible.
Kind of like when worlds collide.
The quick search says HOG stands for Harley Owners Group.
Well, there you go. That explains that.
I guess that's how they got away with it. All right. So anyway, we've said this before. I guess Giant had been in this business like 2 years at this point, maybe 3. You forget sometimes how good he was so right away. Just wasn't like a great promo that y'all need to go check out or anything, but a lot of guys in their third year, most guys in their third year are not getting promos anywhere near this good. This led to Giant versus the Great Muta. Although first, Eric Bischoff came out and took over the announce desk. He had a very slow, very boring match because all Muta could do was kick him in the legs and drop some elbows.
I goddamn nearly fell asleep during this match, and I rarely fall asleep during wrestling, as in never.
Eventually, Giant just starts no-selling everything. He grabs Muta for the chokeslam, just like he did last week. But this time, when Muta goes to spray mist, Giant throws his arm over his own eyes to block the mist.
Ingenious.
Yes, cunning.
Block your move. Then he chokeslams and pins. It was a mess of a match until the finish. So Giant cuts out a promo calling out anyone in the NWO. Before anyone can answer, Zbyszko returns and hits the announce desk. He tears into Bischoff. Bischoff's not backing down. So Larry jumps off the platform the desk is on, just to the arena floor, and says, "Come on then." And Eric says, "All right." And Eric drops down. And as soon as Eric drops down, Zbyszko just grabs him in a front face lock. And he's dragging him down into the ring. Eric is throwing these ineffectual punches, for lack of a better term. He's really just waving his arms around. So Larry drags him down to the ring, throws him into the ring, where the Giant grabs Eric and hits a huge chokeslam. This made everyone very, very, very happy.
Dude, when Larry's headset wasn't working, which is too bad, because I wish everybody could have heard his promo. He unleashed on Eric. "I am sick of you. I am sick of Hall. I am sick of Nash. You have no authority. Get the fuck out of my announcer's booth." And Bischoff says, "What are you going to do about it?" And Larry did something about it. Goozled the guy, dragged his ass to the ring, threw it in, and that was it. This was the best thing Larry has done easily since this heyday of the AWA.
Oh, he was waiting for this. This was his time to shine.
Oh, man. You know what?
This.
Sometimes people wait a lifetime to do something and then fuck it up. Not Larry. This was his chance, and he ran with it. He was great. And they showed replay after replay after replay after replay.
This was a big thing.
Listen, if I were Eric Bischoff and that big fucker chokeslammed me, I'd tell him to replay it 60 times too.
That's true. That's a good point. Had La Parka versus Conan. This was booked as if Conan had been Goldberg. The match went like 2 minutes. La Parka tried to use a chair, but Conan kicked it into his face. Hits the Rampage, hits the Tequila Sunrise for the win, taps him out in 2 minutes after he tried to cheat. Then, Psychosis comes out to jump Conan, but Conan sees him coming and Psychosis backs down. So Conan leaves triumphant, having destroyed one man and humiliated another.
And Heenan said Conan may be the most dangerous man in the NWO.
Seeing this match reminded me that Dave Meltzer had told me to go see La Parka and Rush.
Yes.
Have you seen this?
I've seen clips. I've not seen the whole match.
Unbelievable.
Madness.
Was it better than La Parka versus Conan here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I will try to there's a lot I need to check out in the next month, really. J.J. Dillon calls into the show.
Oh, God. I'll make this quick. Tony says, JJ, I hear you have an offer for Sting. JJ then spends an hour and 55,000 words to say, yes, I have an offer for Sting. Get to the fucking point, dude.
Remember when JJ first showed up and I was telling you what a terrible authority figure he was and you defended him?
Yeah, because I've been watching 1986 NWA.
He was
awesome.
He was a great heel manager.
I don't even blame him. They just give him a bunch of shit to say.
Specifically, what he said was, they have acknowledged it has now been 1 full year since Sting has wrestled a match. That year went by fast, by the way.
It really
At least
did.
it did here in 2016. And JJ says, that's true, but I believe we have an offer that Sting will be happy to accept, and our goal is to get him back in the ring by September.
Wow.
Which is, let's think about this. It's been 12 months. We need 2 more, and even then, they failed because WCW.
Well, you got to get all your ducks in a row, Vince. You can't rush things.
I guess not. Randy Savage versus Scott Steiner. Steiner had a goatee now. Know what that means?
Yeah.
Time being cheered is short. So the Steiner threw him around a bit. They brawled on the floor. I did like when Savage, even though he was already winning on him, Savage has him down on the floor. He says, I'm going to go 20 rows deep into the crowd. I'm going to cross the row all the way to the other entryway, then come 20 rows back just so I can jump Scott Steiner from behind. Finally, Steiner catches him on some kind of top rope move, suplexes him over his head, throws him out of the ring, and Steiner comes back as the top rope Rana, and the Outsiders run out for the DQ. They were here all along, those bastards. So they're triple teaming the Steiners until the Giant runs out to make the save. And Giant says, I got a match with Savage on Saturday night at Sturgis, but Kevin Nash, you and I, we can fight for free right now. And Nash just seems to accept this, and they're teasing the Battle of the Giants and how great it's going to be. And then, of course, the show ends before there's any kind of resolution.
You know, there was a lot of stuff in this that I really liked, such as Scott Steiner's getting too goddamn big for the Frankensteiner, but he's figured out, you know what? A Frankensteiner off the top rope looks more impressive and is much easier.
Yes, it is.
So
And
he's added
honestly
that.
safer.
Added that to his repertoire. Nash and Giant are setting something up for down the road, which goes almost tragically awry. And also Hall and Nash versus the Steiners in a tag title change is also set up, which also goes horribly awry for completely different reasons, as we will find out as we continue on the story of Raw Nitro.